Thank you so much. Oh, and while he's getting the jury, I'm going to ask you all, counsel. We had stated tomorrow that we were going to start at 10:30. We were able to have some things taken off of the docket. If you all think that you want to start at 9:45, we can start earlier tomorrow. If you don't, that's fine. I would have to check with the jury first, because remember I gave the jury this advance notice. I can see if it's okay with them to start at 9:45 or 10. Would you like us to inquire?
Plaintiff like to start as soon as the jury is willing, John.
Pardon?
We'd like to start as soon as the jury is willing.
Okay, so 9:45 or 10 would be amenable to plaintiff's counsel, is that correct?
We are.
Real water, do you all want it?
For real water, we're amenable to starting earlier. Yeah.
Okay, counsel ETT?
Yes, Your Honor.
I don't know if y'all have other hearings or things, so we were able to move some things, but work to your advantage. We'll see if we can start at 9:45 or 10. And my one caveat on that is my 9:30, some motion to dismiss is a pro se litigant, so I'm making the presumption that people are all going to show up on time. Right, the nature of the argument, it shouldn't be more than 15 minutes. Once again, just like any counsel, if somebody doesn't show up on time, then of course I give them some time, obviously, to show up, and I give the same consideration tomorrow as I would any other day. Can you give me a heads up on Friday? I understand another of my matters, my 8:30 matter, they have said that they need 2 hours, which is why we said 10:30. And to my knowledge, we've not received any notification that they need more than said 2 hours, but once again, you might want to check with all your colleagues. You don't need to do that while we're on the record, but if something else is heading my way that you all might know about before I do, I'm just telling you, I'm basing on the 2 hours on a prior record, okay? My subtle way of saying one of the firms here, it's their firm that has the matters requesting the 2 hours for Friday. That's the only communication this court currently has. And so that's what we got. But sometimes counsel know more in advance than the court does. I'm about to get a letter while I'm standing here with you all. I don't know it yet.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes, we're ready for the jury. Thank you so much, Marshall.
Okay, thanks for standing, everybody. Come on in, folks. Your Honor, all members of the jury are present. Everyone, please be seated.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Hope everyone had a nice relaxing break. If you recall before the break, Marshall is about to get the same witness to come back to the stand. And then we're in direct examination, so just 1 second while witness has a chance to come back to the stand. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Hutson, just go ahead and repeat the stand and have a seat.
Appreciate it. And the practice we've been doing is we just remind the witness that you're still under oath. Do you understand you're still under oath even though you had a break?
I do.
Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Feel free to have a seat. And counsel, you can feel free to continue with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Hutson, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, ready?
Ready.
Ready. All right. So if you could put slide number 47. So we're going to talk about Myles Hunwardsen at this point, okay, Dr. Hutson?
Yes, sir.
And you recognize that picture?
I do.
I'm going to show you slide 48. Your Honor, we're looking now at Exhibit 628, which is also a stipulated exhibit. And before we pull it up, Shane, let's make sure that the court's fine with that.
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Go ahead, please.
So this is a medical record taken from Mr. Hunwardsen's complete medical files. And it says, patient's mother stated the patient has been in bed for 5 days and won't eat, has altered mental status, and has been falling. Again, this seems pretty consistent with the other claims, correct?
Yes, sir.
And from the date of this is September 19, 2019. You see that?
Yes, sir.
No. Your understanding of Mr. Hunwardsen's consumption of real water for the bottles and jugs?
Yes, sir, it was.
Looking at slide 49, which is 628.1, this is the history of present illness. It says this is a 29-year-old male with essentially no past medical history who was last seen acting normal 4 days ago. 3 days ago, patient went to work and was confused, stumbling around. The next 2 days, he could not get out of bed. He's been confused, has been restless at night, with his sleep and sleeping during the day. Based upon an acute liver injury, does your body just simply start breaking down?
Yes, sir, it can.
Is that what was happening with Mr. Hunwardsen?
That's what was happening. So he has classic encephalopathy, which is the confusion and stumbling and difficulty communicating. That's what hepatic encephalopathy is called.
Looking at page 2 of this exhibit, we now see his ALT scores and his AST scores. Are those extremely high?
Very high.
At this point, are you concerned, if you're the emergency room physician, that he has an acute liver injury?
Well, I think, you can see on that piece of paper at the very bottom, the INR of 7.7. So this guy's more than just acute liver injury. This is a fulminant hepatic failure. It's the worst advanced thing that you can get with liver failure.
All right. Go to page 7, please. Same exhibit. What's MELD 39 points, 52% mortality? What's that mean?
MELD is a scale that was developed in about 2002, and it stands for Model for End-Stage Liver Disease. And it predicts mortality at 3 months and 6 months. And it's a very good predictor. The MELD score runs from 6, which is normal, to 40, which is abnormal as you can get. Look at his. His is 39. So it's just about as bad as you can get, which means a very high mortality. As listed here, 52% mortality at 3 months.
So they were predicting, without some form of immediate care, that he had a 52% chance of dying within 3 months?
Yes, sir.
That's how bad his acute liver failure is.
That's how bad it is.
Go to the next document, Your Honor. We're going to go to Exhibit 394. I believe there's no objection to this exhibit. At least that's what I've been told. Take it off until we get an agreement from the court.
For the record show proposed.
Yes, I think we have an agreement by everyone. Your Honor, every document I believe I'm going to show there's no objections.
Okay, so the water can confirm for proposed 394?
Confirm, Your Honor.
So it's admitted, is that correct?
Is it-
It's not, I don't show 384 as admitted, but we don't have an objection to it, Your Honor.
Okay, ETT,
No objection, Your Honor.
counsel, feel free to put it up.
Thank you, Your Honor. And with all my exhibits, Your Honor, and I know you'll have to take a survey and everything, but I will represent that I broached it with everyone.
Sure.
394, please. Is it your understanding, Dr. Hutson, that Myles was taken, transported directly from the hospital to UCLA?
Yes, sir.
And that's something that is typically required when you have what he was diagnosed with?
When you have fulminant hepatic failure, there is an urgency to get somebody to a liver transplant center, like immediately, same day. You don't keep them overnight. You don't watch and see what happens. With a MELD score of 39, you have such a high chance of dying. You've got a 29-year-old here. You've got to get him to a transplant center ASAP.
And so the next document, dated September 20th, 2019, and it shows his ALT scores and AST scores. Your Honor, again, we're back to Exhibit 628, the Senate admitted. Are these high scores?
They are all high scores.
And it doesn't seem like it's getting much better.
No, sir.
So at this point, he's still, in all likelihood, has a high MELD score.
He does.
Let's go to page 42 of his medical records, same exhibit. It says this 29-year-old patient with acute fulminant hepatic failure. Manifestations include encephalopathy, jaundice, ascites, coagulopathy, hepatorenal syndrome, and failure to thrive. What is going on with him at this point?
He's got the confusion that we talked about because his liver can't clear toxins from the body. He's turned yellow. He has ascites, which is fluid in the abdomen, and some of you may have seen patients before, their belly gets real big with cirrhotics, so that's fluid that leaks off the liver and fills up the abdomen. Coagulopathy means that he's not clotting his blood properly. The INR that I pointed out a minute ago was 7. INR should be 1. So 7, which is extremely dangerous. Hepatorenal syndrome means that his kidneys are failing, or his kidneys have failed, and then failure to thrive, just, that's sort of a generalized term that he's doing very poorly.
And in this second paragraph, it says here, the MEL score of approximately status 1, capital letters status 1. What's that mean?
Status 1 puts you at the very top of the liver transplant list for the entire region. So there's 8 regions in the United States under UNOS, which is the United Network of Organ Sharing. And if somebody is a status 1, that takes precedence over anybody else in that region. So he goes to number 1 on listing, because if this guy doesn't get a liver transplant, probably within 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days, he'll be dead. So they take precedence. So even if somebody's been on the list for 2 years, this guy is going to take precedence because he's going to die without it. So that's status 1.
Then it says, informed consent, including discussion of risk, benefits, and alternative therapy, and risk of alternative therapy was undertaken with this patient's family. Dumont UCLA transplant team. Have you heard of this transplant team?
I have.
And what does informed consent mean when you're talking about a patient in this condition?
Informed consent means that the physicians have discussed with the patient and or his family. In his case, it would be his family, because he's not considered to be able to consent. He's encephalopathic. So whoever his medical power of attorney or next of kin is, we sit down and discuss with them what a liver transplant is, what it means, and all the risks involved with that, including the fact that you can die on the table. If you're sick enough, you can die on the table. But I will tell you guys, that does not happen very often. That's a rare, rare thing. We've gotten so good at liver transplant now in the United States, an intraoperative death is rare. So particularly a young guy like this, I would not be afraid to operate on this guy. You go in with that with a lot of confidence that you're going to get a good outcome.
And then if we could take a look at page 43, please. Oh, there we go. Stop right there. The patient had the gross appearance of severe acute liver failure. The liver was firm, stiff, pale, yellow in color, with gross evidence of parenchymal collapse and a few regenerative nodules. The perfusion appeared abnormal. So this is a description of how the liver looked?
Yes, sir.
Right.
In the operating room.
In the operating room. So now the body's open.
Body's open.
And when they do a liver transplant, how much of a scar or how much of an opening do you have to create?
It's huge. It goes from here to here. It's big.
How many stitches or sutures are we talking?
We're talking 40-some sutures to close.
All right. Let's take a look at Exhibit 393. Your Honor, again, I believe this is, don't put it up yet. Okay. There's no objection to this document, though, Your Honor.
390.
Proposed.
We just need to know if there's no objection or not. Council Real Water?
That's fine.
That's fine, Your Honor.
Pardon?
She's just looking.
Okay, I just didn't hear the answer. No worries.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, Council, you may,
Thank you.
and that's admitted, and feel free to put it up. Okay.
So, Dr. Hutson, what is this? I'll just ask you.
This is the liver split in half. And that's what we do once we take the liver out. We want to see what this liver looks like as in what we call the gross specimen.
And whose liver is this?
This is Myles Hunwardsen.
So the gentleman that's been sitting here, that was his liver,
That is his
the
liver,
one he was born with.
the one he was born with.
Understood.
And it looks bad.
Okay, and describe that to the jury here. What makes this liver, in your opinion, look bad?
First of all is the color. Our normal liver should be a nutmeg color. Do you guys know what nutmeg is? Sort of that really light brown color. So this is like just grossly abnormal. And then if you look at those little slits and things on the liver, those are where the what we call the canalicula of the liver are. Those are all collapsed. You know, we should see a lot of those in an orderly fashion. The liver is a very, very orderly organ. When you look at it under a normal liver, you should see this look very regular and very normal and everything organized in circles. So the liver has circles around it. There's no circles here, right? It's just, it's haphazard. So this liver is trashed. This liver is completely trashed.
And that's why it had to be removed?
That's why it had to be removed. This liver, there's no way this liver would have recovered.
Understood. And this is all based upon hydrazine being a toxin to the liver?
Yes, sir.
The next slide, 57, please. Now, I want you to go through this and describe to this jury what a liver transplant operation entails and whether or not there was any other options for Mr. Hunwardsen when he was at UCLA.
Well, I mentioned to you guys before that a liver transplant is the most complicated and complex organ transplant that there is. And I explained to you in a little bit of detail about why. You know, all the hookups you have to do, all the disconnections and all the hookups that you don't have to face with the heart, lungs, or kidneys, or even pancreas. So that's what makes it very difficult to begin with, even though we've gotten very good at it. You know, we do about 8,000 liver transplants per year in the United States now. That number has continually gone up a little bit every year because we're able to use more organs and people have been more willing to donate as well. So, you know, liver transplants, it's complex. The operation, you know, I've seen liver transplants in uncomplicated patients be done as little as 4 hours, but I've also seen 20 or 24-hour operations when people have a lot of bleeding, particularly in acute fulminant failure. There can be, because of the coagulopathy, people, you touch them and they bleed in the operating room. So you're pouring in blood, you're pouring in fresh frozen plasma to try to make the blood clot, you're clamping everything off, you're trying to prevent the patient from bleeding out while you're actually doing the liver transplant. And that's what can happen, and that's what can happen in a lot of patients that are this sick, that have this severe of a disease.
Are there only a few actual transplant centers in America?
Well, it's not a few. There's 100, I believe the last number is 121 liver transplant centers in the U.S.
Got it.
I think that's correct.
And in terms of the number of medical professionals that participate in an actual transplant, are there a number of people that have to be there in the surgical room?
There's a lot.
Let me show you slide 59. Is that the typical number of medical physicians, nurses, anesthesiologists that are there assisting with this transplant?
That's what you need to function in a liver transplant.
And when you looked at the medical bills and medical records from Mr. Hunwardsen, did you see this sort of army of physicians attending to him during that surgery?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's go to the next slide. I want you to describe to the jury the liver transplant procedure, what's actually done once you get started. Maybe you can explain those to the jury.
Okay, so this is what I was referring to for you guys to say, to tell you why it's so complex to do a liver transplant and so involved. So, you know, the first thing you have to do is you have to open up the patient and take out the old liver. That's, you know, that can be relatively quick if you're not bleeding and you're not really, really sick. With Myles, it took a while because you have to go really slow and clamp off every little bleeder that you see because his coagulopathy, his, you know, that INR being so high. So the hepatectomy involves not only, you know, lifting the organ out, but you have to clamp off the bile duct, you have to clamp off the portal vein, you have to clamp off the vena cava, you have to clamp off the aorta, and you have to clamp off the hepatic artery. So there's all these things that you have to clamp off because you can't have them leaking into the abdominal cavity. That's going to kill the patient. So that's the first part. And that's difficult in a really sick patient. Then, while you're doing that, typically the second surgeon in the room is working on what we call the back table. And that's a table that's set separate from where the patient lies in the operating room, and they bring in the donor organ. The donor organ may have been brought from locally in the same city, or it may have come from a distant state, because you have to match up the liver with blood type and size. The match-up is not real hard with livers compared to like hearts and lungs that have to have all this HLA matching and stuff. But at the same time, it's still got to be a good health. In a guy like this, you've got to have a really good donor liver. You cannot take a marginal liver or it won't work. You know, you've got to be very picky on this particular patient. So the donor liver goes on the back table, what we call the back table. And they bring the liver in, put it out on the table. They have to flush out this solution that we put in to preserve it called University of Wisconsin solution, UW. And that's perfused in the liver. And that keeps that liver from doing bad things for about 6 to 8 hours. You can keep a liver in its 0 degrees solution and this solution, and it keeps the liver fresh so that you don't have problems afterwards. All that UW solution has to be flushed out of the liver, and the donor liver brought to room temperature, because you can't put the UW solution in there. That will ruin the liver and make the patient very sick. And it has to be at least room temperature. We like to bring it up to body temperature, and that's what we do most of the time. But in a real urgent situation, you can put it in, but you can't put it in at that real cold temperature. So then once you have all that ready on the back table, and remember you've got a separate surgeon working on that whole back table while the other surgeon's trying to remove the liver that's already in there and keep the patient alive. Then you're ready to put the liver in. So you lift it up, you carry it across the room, you put it down in the abdominal cavity, because by that time your first surgeon should be ready to accept that organ because he's already taken out the bad liver, damaged liver. So then you have to go by steps. Each step is very important to hook that liver back up. So first of all, you have to sort of position it, because remember, not all livers are the same, right? So you may be putting in a bigger liver than what that patient had, or you might be putting in a smaller liver. Smaller liver is usually not a problem. Sometimes we have younger small females and they get kind of a big liver. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to fit it in there, and it makes the anastomosis, that is, the hookups, a little more difficult. But in any case, you have to start with each one of these. And if you look at number 4, the hepatic artery has to be reconstructed. And it may be simple or it may be complex. Myles had a complex arterial reconstruction. His hepatic artery was difficult to match up with the donor hepatic artery. And so that makes it take longer, and it makes it more difficult. Then you do your portal vein reconstruction, because the portal vein accounts for 2/3 of the blood flow to the liver. Hepatic artery is 1/3 of the blood flow to the liver, portal veins 2/3. But you're going to hook up that artery first, because the artery is what perfuses all the bile ducts. And you want to preserve the bile ducts, so you've got to get that artery put in right away. Portal vein comes next, then you've got to do the vena cava, because the vena cava has to be open in order to drain the liver, right? The portal vein takes blood in, vena cava takes it out. So then that's done. And then the gallbladder removal, cholecystectomy, by the way, is done on the back table. So we always take out the gallbladder in a liver transplant, because you don't want to have to face a gallbladder that goes bad in a liver transplant patient, right? That could be bad. So we just eliminate it. There's no other horrible reason that it has to come out other than you don't want to take a chance of a fresh liver transplant and a gallbladder going bad. So we take out the gallbladder on the back table. And then after that's done, the last stage is reconstructing the bile duct. And then we wait until after we reconstruct the bile duct to actually see bile perfusing through the liver and coming out of the small intestine. So we have the whole abdomen open, and we wait until we can see bile recirculating through the liver and coming out into the small intestine. Then we're like, okay, everything works. All the clamps are off. Everything's looking good. We can close the abdomen now.
And that's the 4 to 18 hours that we're talking about.
That is right.
From your review of the medical records from Mr. Hunwardsen, did you see each of these steps being taken?
I did, and they document that in the surgical report.
So let's take this as an example, 628, page 44.
It's actually page 43, Mr. Parker.
Yeah, can you go to 44, please? Next page. Bingo. So item 7 here actually gives a time. Donor cross clamp time and a reperfusion time. What's that mean?
That tells you how long the liver has not been perfused. So cross clamp time means that there's no perfusion of blood into that donor liver. So you want to know how many minutes that there is without perfusion, because the longer there is no perfusion, the more chance is there can be bile duct damage. And this was, you know, I don't remember exactly how long it was on him, but it wasn't long. And so they document that cross clamp time so that you can calculate how many minutes that is. And then reperfusion time is when they reconnect the liver and you start seeing blood going through the liver itself.
Can I go to the next slide? This says standard arterial reconstruction. You see that?
Correct.
And the note here is what I'm concerned about. It says, upon release of the clamps with flushing and arterial reperfusion, the arterial inflow was poor. So it's describing a problem apparently. What was the problem here?
Well, the problem was that it looked like the hepatic artery was probably a bit compressed by the pancreas because there was so much inflammation, because I forgot to mention that before, he also had pancreatitis going into this. So that complicated the operation a little bit more. So the liver wasn't getting the strong pulse of liver from the hepatic artery that it should. So they had to sort of dissect further, and then they had to sort of improve that flow by operating and freeing up that hepatic artery so that there was better blood flow.
And then the last line says, this added an additional 60 minutes of operative time. Was this a fairly long transplant procedure?
This was a long transplant procedure.
This was closer to the 18 hours as opposed to the 4.
Correct.
And at closure, the last part of this, you go through, you remove all the sponges, the needles, everything else. And from that point forward, how long is the recovery time?
You mean recovery in order to
In
get
the
them
hospital.
in the hospital? Average time is 2 weeks in the hospital.
Now let's talk about after Mr. Hunwardsen gets the donor liver. How long does a transplant recipient typically have to live? And if you could, just put up slide 59. I apologize, 69.
So the transplant, on this, the transplant recipients have a 58% chance of surviving 15 years. The median survival is probably a easier way to look at it, is 12 to 15 years. But at the same time, I do have, since I've been doing this a long time, I have 35-year survivors after liver transplant. So people can live for a long, long time with a liver transplant, but some people don't do as well as others, and that's difficult to predict, which people are going to do really well and which people are not going to do so well. But those are the numbers.
So on average, people last 15 years on average, 12 to 15. But you've seen better results.
I have.
Or,
I've seen many better results than that.
and is it fair to say that everyone who's received a donor liver has to take rejection drugs?
Everybody has to take rejection drugs
And is that for life?
for life.
And if you don't take anti-rejection drugs for life, what happens?
The liver rejects and you die.
So there's no options here. Either you take it or you die.
That's correct.
And are there any side effects to taking anti-rejection drugs?
There are lots
Objection
of side
beyond scope.
effects.
Basis of your, that's your basis?
Beyond the scope.
Join your 16.1.
Okay, you know what? That sounds like council wants to come forward, and some lovely white noise wants to head our way. Sit there listening to white noise, you'd probably rather go stretching your legs for a few minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to give you a recess. During this recess, you are admonished not to talk first among yourselves with anyone else on any subject connected with the trial. You may not read, watch, or listen to a report of the joint, taking that down while the court's reading the admonition.
Yeah, take that down, Shane.
I appreciate it. Let me just start over. It was only a couple of sentences into anyway. During this recess, you are admonished not to talk or converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with the trial. You may not read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial or any person or entity connected with the trial by any medium of information, including without limitation. Social media, text, tweets, newspapers, television, internet, radio, anything I'm not saying specifically is still also included. Do not visit the scene of the events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any research, experimentation, or investigation. Do not do any posting or communications on any social networking sites or anywhere else. Do not do any independent research, including not limited to internet searches. Do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with trials and cases fully and finally submitted to you. During the break, the marshal is going to ask you, actually I'm going to ask you right now, and just so you can let the marshal know, is there a chance we can start tomorrow at 10 instead of 10:30? Because since I told you 10:30, I want to make sure that's not impacting anybody's rides or other obligations. If it, don't tell me now if you're an open court, but just let the marshal know during the break if that impacts anyone. We're just trying to, given the extra time to try and reduce time, we'll try to do that. Okay, thanks very much. Enjoy your break. 15 minutes notice.
All right, for the jury.
A second until we hear the click. First thing, do you want the witness here during the oral argument, or do you want the witness outside the courtroom?
We would ask that he be
He
excused.
should be excused.
That's 2. How about 3?
That's fine, okay.
Okay, good, fine. Watch your step on the way down. Thank you,
So I
sir.
advise Mr. Marlowe, he can go to the director.
That's perfectly fine. You're not, are you arguing this one, or should I wait for you?
Mr. Parker's-
Okay, no worries. Okay. So, while that's being taken care of, let's address your issue. The objection raised to the court was outside the scope of the committed by real water. So, that's what I heard in open court. And that's what the court is going to need to address. So the question was with regards to side effects is outside the scope. Is someone going to provide the court possibly maybe a copy of said expert report? So I would have, or do you all stipulate to what quote was the scope of his designation? I'm just trying to get a source material. If you're all arguing something is not within his designation, is outside the scope, then I would need to see what is inside the scope. But while I'm doing, looks like you you might be doing that, so let me hear ET&T's objection, their analysis for their objection. That gives you real water a moment to look for that, and it gives Mr. So ET&T, go ahead, please.
Yes, Your Honor, in Dr. Hutson's reports, he does not address the effects of the immunosuppressants, and in particular, the effect that it will impact his ability to have children, and I believe that's where this line of questioning is going. The question was, what are the side effects? One of the side effects mentioned after the close of discovery has been Mr. Hunwardsen's inability or the impact on his ability to bear children. Dr. Hutson did not opine on that in either of his reports.
Okay. And I have to ask you, since it was raised, oh yeah, Marshall, can you get the report and hand it to me, please? I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
There's his report in his rebuttal report there, Your Honor.
Okay, so I'm just going to put it here right now. Okay, so since the issue of standing, I'm going to get to real water in 1 second. I just have to, there's a different question with regards to the movement. So then the second question was whether or not that relates to the status of your client in this case as it procedurally stands, or does it go to compensatory damages?
Well, it's my understanding, Your Honor, that we're not permitted to cross-examine certain witnesses, but the fact that there's evidence that should not be properly admitted that we have not lost our ability to at least object to that evidence.
Okay, Real Water, you joined.
We did, Your Honor, and I think ETT did touch on the point. We heard in opening that it appears plaintiffs are contending this new theory that Mr. Hunwardsen will be unable to have children in the future as a result of taking immunosuppressive drugs. That's expressed nowhere within the four corners of Dr. Hutson's report or in Dr. Hutson's supplemental reports or declarations. It wasn't in the fact sheet under damages for Mr. Hunwardsen's case, and it wasn't disclosed in the 16.1 disclosure under the damages section until after expert designation.
Wait, after expert designation, or after the closing?
Correct, and so
I need that point of clarification, because experts is before discovery closes, so which one is it?
okay. As I understand it, Your Honor, it was after expert designation, but right before the close of discovery. But under 16.1, if you look at the 2B, it says expert witnesses are not to opine on things that aren't within the disclosure of their written report. And he does not cover that in his written report.
Okay, so, counsel for plaintiff, would you like to point me where in the report he addressed the issue, or a rebuttal report, or what your basis is, please?
Your Honor.
Since that was raised, that's the first question I have to ask.
Thank you. Your Honor, we, in our designation, informed the defendants that Dr. Hutson would be talking on this subject. In fact, looking at the 16.1 designation, lines 11 through 14, I'll read it into the record.
Sure.
In addition to all economic damages, plaintiffs seek general damages for plaintiffs' past and future pain, suffering, stress, fear, mental anguish, disability, loss of enjoyment of life, loss of ability to have biological children, loss of life, additional liver transplant, and all other damages allowed under Nevada law. That's a part of our 16.1 disclosure statement, Your Honor.
The initial 16.1, which date?
This is the 21st supplement to the initial disclosure.
Date
I can look to see if it was a part of the original, Your Honor. This is, it's not bolded, so I'm assuming this is a part of the original as well.
Yes, sir, I just brought this one, I'm gonna trace it back and I'll tell you when it was first made.
No worries, because the issue was that it was after expert disclosures were already, okay, expert reports, et cetera. Okay, so, counsel, are you saying it's in his report, because he's doing Fiesta Palms, all the changes, right, 2019?
His report speaks of the drugs that he would be taking, Your Honor, and those drugs carry with that problem.
But, I'm sorry, I might not have been clear in my question when I was trying to go with my question.
Sure.
I appreciate you all want to talk in conversion, but when you do
All right.
that and you understand the microphone's going to you and there's not kind of clear record, please flip the,
Sorry, Your Honor.
no worries. Okay, so. With regard to the expert report, are you asserting that it's in the expert report or the supplemental expert report or any expert report?
No, I'm saying the medications are specifically identified in the expert report. Those medications come with those warnings.
Are the damages themselves that are asserted for purposes of not being able to have children, is that a timely disclosed damage?
We're searching back, that's a good question, Your Honor. We're searching back to see when it was first identified as a damage under 16.1, so that should address the damage component. Certainly the doctor won't be the one saying the value of having children is $50 million. He simply can document the side effects of the medications that he's specifically identifying in his report. And those are the medications that we're speaking of that will prevent Mr. Hunwardsen from having children.
Can you clarify the date of the 21st disclosure?
Sure, and I'm gonna find the first one that actually has that.
Yeah, no worries,
Right.
it's just so with clarity, at least we have chronology for that one, please.
Yes, the one I was reading from, Your Honor, was 12/18, but the one before that, October 6th, Your Honor.
Of what year?
of last year.
2023.
Thank you.
So, and you know the close of discovery was November 1st, John, of 23.
But expert disclosure date and expert reports were already due previously, correct?
Yeah, the medications are timely done in the expert reports. The calculation under 16.1 for damages was done within the discovery period. And the expert reports were done timely as well.
I'm sorry. May not have been clear on my question. Where I'm trying to go is the issue of side effects, which is where the objection was for outside the scope, okay, are side effects of taking those medications articulated anywhere in his expert report, rebuttal expert report, or something you want to point me to that he gave an opinion on those side effects, right? That's the first issue I addressed with. Is this a new opinion, or is this opinion that's already been expressed?
Your Honor, opinion 12 of his report dated September 15, 2023 says, as a result of his liver failure, transplant, and long-term use of immunosuppressive medications, Mr. Hunwardsen will probably than not require multiple emergency room visits, hospitalizations in future, all precise number of difficult to predict.
I'm sorry, counsel, I might be looking at something different. What was handed to me, the 12,
This is on the last page of his first report, Sean.
okay. Is that Hutson ending in 08, or are we doing something different?
Yeah, that's Hutson, Your Honor. He also mentions, he does not specifically say what the side effects are, but he does mention the exact medications that say on the warning this issue. And he names them he specifically gives the names of those immunosuppressive medications.
Counsel, once again, I'm looking for a date, so give me a quick moment here. Okay. The paragraph 12, which says Hutson 008, which I'm looking at, and it says expert written report. It was exhibit 8, so it looks like a depot. Or maybe it's not a depot, who knows? I'm looking for the date of the report, because you mentioned a September date, but the paragraph 12 that I was handed had the following. Mr. Hunwardsen will require significant future medical monitoring and care as a result of his acute liver failure, liver transplant, and long-term use of necessary medication, including immunoblessed.
That's correct, John. Bless you.
Suppressants. My opinions on these matters are addressed below. Then I
Yes.
heard you start to name other things, so I didn't see that.
No, that's correct, Your Honor. You're reading the correct paragraph.
Okay, so, are you saying that any of his opinions, okay, paragraph 7, I'm looking for, do any of his opinions mention any aspects with regards to the ability to have children, the inability to have children, anything related thereto, which really isn't your specific question. Your question was side effects, so I guess I have to block it down to side effects first. So,
And that's my question about it. Those side effects of these medications.
okay,
I don't know how he would be precluded from discussing the side effects of the medications he specifically mentioned in his report.
so is your contention that one of the immunosuppressants, and I appreciate what was said in opening statement, you understand opening statements, so I have to ask you if you're saying this on any basis with regards to this witness. Are you contending that he's going to say certain of the immunosuppressants are going to cause X, Y, Z? Is that what you're saying, side effects? Whatever those X, Y, Z side effects are?
That's exactly right. The actual medications he's specifying in there, the side effects of those medications, I believe he should be able to testify to.
Okay, I'm circling back. All right, they've had a chance, so ETT, let's just speak how much I consider. It's going to be a different issue, but I want everyone to be able to express what they want to express. So I'm not saying I'm not considering, just letting everyone speak right now. So Counsel for ETT, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Valerie Rojas for ETT. And looking at Dr. Hutson's report, I don't see where he discusses the impact of the immunosuppressants on his ability to have children in either the original or rebuttal report. And that's the problem, Your Honor. An expert is required to list all of his opinions in his report, and he's failed to do that. The question posed was open-ended. My concern is it's gonna be slipped into his answer.
But you understand the court has to deal with question by question, right? The question pending, for which the objection was raised, was what are the side effects, or are there side effects? I think it was a what, I think it was open-ended, but once again, it was the word side effects, it wasn't addressing the specific child issue. Now, I appreciate experienced counsel, you may think someone's going somewhere, but I've got to address the question as phrased. So, are you saying that there's not the ability to answer the side effects, or are you concerned about a question down the road that you think might be coming?
No, it's this question, Your Honor. I understand what he's going to list, and it's my understanding he's gonna list the impact of these immunosuppressants on Mr. Hunwardsen's ability to have children, and that is not addressed in either of his reports.
Okay, you joined Real Water, go ahead, you get.
You're right, Your Honor. And, you know, Dr. Hutson does detail specifically what all of the side effects are from this particular immunosuppressant. So in his report, he talks about
Please refer me
risk.
to a page, please. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sure. Which was it? 10? Page, yeah.
Okay, since these don't have page numbers, can you refer me to the base stamp numbers, please, in the lower right-hand corner?
I have it as 354-0010.
Okay. If that one doesn't work, then can you at least give me a paragraph number about how many pages it is into said document? Because the one I were handed, right, started with Hutson 001, and it went to,
Do you have Hutson 0010?
if you handed it to me, 1 second, please. No, hold on, let me double check, please.
Yes, I have it on the screen.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, okay. Okay. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so Your Honor, Dr. Hutson does detail the various side effects associated with CAP, or this immunosuppressive drug. He talks about increased risk of hypertension, increased risk of cardiovascular disease, potential risk for kidneys. He doesn't make any mention of impact on future ability to have children. And as it wasn't in his expert report, you know, he should be allowed to testify about it. But also, it impacts our experts, because our experts are relying on, you know, what's in their expert reports and what's in the damages disclosure. And if the damages disclosure is changed long after expert disclosures, then we're not in a position to have our expert prepared to talk about these things. But ultimately, it wasn't within the four corners of any of his reports.
Two separate trains of analyses, right?
Yeah.
One's the dollars, because there's specific case law on that, and you all are probably very, very familiar since everyone cites it to the court all the time, right? I can name you the doctors, I can name you the type of things, I can name you the number of errors that were stated. It wasn't my case. Actually, judge is no longer on the bench, but, okay. That's disclosures and a specific statement by the Nevada Supreme Court that you must do all damages, including future damages. Doesn't matter if there was a perception of custom and practice. That's one issue. I'm not hearing that as being objected to right now. Is that, because asking for side effects is not asking for dollars. Is that correct? I mean, is somebody saying,
Right, it's just, we're talking about this one particular side effect that wasn't disclosed.
okay, or because when you all start saying, and he didn't mention these additional costs, and I have to know the scope of the issue that the court's being asked to address, okay? I appreciate lawyers trying to expand and educate the court, but once again, I gotta focus in on what's actually before the court. A question about side effects, an objection, outside the scope, and a joinder there too. So now that's what I have to focus on. Because the dollars has not been addressed. So I have to look at the actual aspect of what he gave for side effects. So it seems to me that the court's ruling is going to need to be as follows, and I'm going to need to sustain in part and give a clarification of what my sustaining in part, what I mean by that. And what I mean by that is to be overruled in part. since outside the scope goes to the broad question of side effects, I have to overrule it to the extent that there are side effects listed, as you all pointed out in Hutson 00010, right? And those are detailed in that last paragraph. So that part has to be overruled. It's going to be sustained to the extent that it's not. And I've given everyone a full opportunity to show me what reports or anything, other side effects have been done. And you realize it's now 2010. But and nobody's been able to provide anything to the court that there was additional side effects listed. This was his report. Also got a rebuttal report, so its objection gets sustained with any side effect not listed in his report and overruled with regards to side effects listed in his report for this witness. That's straight under best bones NRCP 16.1, because I do not see that anybody has told me that there's been any waiver, anything outside anything that's been otherwise agreed to by the parties, or that there's anything that shows this court that there's another expansion of his assertions other than in his report. And since we are in the midst of trial, it would be too prejudicial to all of a sudden allow an additional opinion as to additional side effects to come up in the course of a trial, since the other, at least, regardless of the issue on standing with regards to ET&T, which really is, the court doesn't necessarily need to address at this juncture because I have real water objecting. And so with real water objecting means for compensatory damages, this is out the court's ruling is what I just said it was. It is so ordered. So, ladies and gentlemen, shall we bring the jury back in? You've got about 5-7 minutes to get it. Yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And Marshall, I understand that you checked with all of our jurors and they're okay to be here at 9:45 with the 10 o'clock start time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that what you all want? Yes?
Yes, please.
Yes, 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 and yes. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Can we change that? Perfect. Okay. Should I be holding on to this copy of the expert report in case this issue comes up again in the next moment or two? Or do you all want it
I
back?
would too, Your Honor. I would also notice, Your Honor, that in the deposition, several side effects were discussed, starting at page 160, 161 to
But
164.
you understand, Counsel, you're now bringing that up after the court rule, so you can
Well-
appreciate.
It was discussed in deposition, Your Honor. I'm putting the court on notice, and since that question's not in front of the court right now.
Okay. Like I said, it's not in front of the court right now. Okay?
Yep.
Have no depo, have nothing.
I have it, Your Honor. If there's an objection, certainly those making objections is there for me with deposition.
No worries. I appreciate the court's rule on what was actually before me,
Exactly.
and I appreciate the heads up of things that will be coming down the pipe.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Honor.
Is court ready, Judge?
Of course we are.
Okay.
Bring them in. Thank you so very much.
Come on in, everybody.
Okay.
We are all members of the jury are present. Everyone,
We
please
do
be seated.
appreciate it. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, if you recall, Marshall's going to go get the witness to come back to the stand because he's been multitasking. And here in just a second, in counsel for plaintiff, you should either feel free to come to podium or whatever you wish to do.
Your Honor, we're at a crossroads right now in terms of timing. I don't know if you were planning on letting the jury go at 45. I just looked up and saw it. We were all working, collectively. How long do you want me to go, or how long can I go, given that it's 4:45 right now?
Counsel, you can't ask me that in front of the jury. Please come forward.
How about this? I'm gonna come forward, Your Honor.
It'd be a wonderful thing to see you son, right? And I get work from you. Nice to see you again. I'm going to give you an admonition so you can go enjoy your evening. The witness is not going to be finished today, and so there's no reason to keep you late when I know you have other commitments, et cetera. And thank you. You graciously said you can come back 9:45 just for a 10 o'clock start time tomorrow, so we'll just take care of things then. Do appreciate it. So ladies and gentlemen, during this overnight recess, you are admonished not to converse among yourselves with anyone else on any subject connected to the trial. You must not read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial, any person or entity connected with this trial by any medium of information, including without limitation, social media, text, tweets, newspapers, television, internet, radio. Anything I've not stated specifically is also included. Do not visit the scene or the events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any research, experimentation, or investigation. Do not do any posting or communications on any social networking sites or anywhere else. Do not do any independent research, including not limited to internet searches. And please do not form or express any opinion on any subject of the trial until the case is fully and finally submitted to the time of jury deliberations. With that, we wish you a very nice and relaxing evening. And as Marcia said, we'll ask you to be here at 9:45 for start time at 10. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much, everyone.
Okay, folks, come on out.
Okay, so the president, so one thing can, either I need to keep this copy or someone needs to give me a copy first thing tomorrow morning if it's gonna come back up, so.
Your Honor,
No problem
that's,
returning it, but,
Your Honor, that's Matt Kaufman for real law. That's my copy, you can keep it.
okay, so you all get yourselves another copy, okay?
Yes.
Just if you're gonna bring it right back up, I'm gonna ask you again, so it doesn't seem to make much sense, right? Okay, so, as far as the witness, you want the witness to be excused out to the hallway?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's fine, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, because I need to talk a little bit about scheduling with you all and figure out some time frame. So do you want the witness gone for the day, or where do you want them to be?
I think it's just in the hallway, Your Honor.
Just in the hallway? Okay. So Marshall, you heard that. Thanks so much. So you all can sit down, stand up, whatever's coming before your backs. Okay, so. Tomorrow. My challenge I'm gonna need to let you all know is the date of the 6th. We were able to move a lot of things, for this week to try and get you as much time as possible. The reason why we did not tell the jury what was happening on the 5th and 6th is because there is a plethora of things on this court's docket that just realistically don't have the ability to move a lot of those things on the 6th. So I'm going to jump ahead and you all can tell me tomorrow. The challenge with the 6th is we were going to have to end early that day, like no later than 2 o'clock. And right now I have 15, 19, 21, plus 2 mandatory rules, 16, 23. And we, as you can appreciate, we moved lots of things for lots of other days to try and get you those days. That one seems to be our sticking point. So what that means is you probably can have 2 or 3 hours of trial time on the 6th.
And what did you say about the 5th, Your Honor?
Nothing for the 5th. The 5th,
Are we good on the 5th? I thought you said something was
yeah,
going on.
no, my bad. The 5th, oh wait, that's getting moved. The other one, it may not have moved yet. That one's going away. It's the 6th, only the 6th.
Okay, good. Thank
And I
you.
remember we're still dark on the 8th, 9th, and 12th, so I'll let you just mull this over this evening and talk among yourselves. I just want to give you a heads up still as quickly as we knew. So our other times for the rest of this week are all still where we're at.
Okay.
In fact, we're earlier for tomorrow.
If you were going to clear with the jury that they're 10.
10 tomorrow.
Yeah, they said it was fine. They checked the mark. That's what, when we set out for the break, I made it as a useful break. They're gonna be here at 9:45 for start time at 10, okay? He told them, so the jury's okay with that. That means you all should be here no later than 9:45, like I said.
Judge,
Go ahead, counsel.
can I just make one point? The
Of course you can, go ahead.
representation that was made by the defendants that this childbirth issue is something new that they weren't prepared for.
Counsel, I can't reopen, in fairness, if it was scheduled,
I know we're talking about tomorrow, Your Honor,
but in fairness, I need to give everyone the same opportunity, right? Because if you start, then the other side, somebody else is gonna wanna say, but then we wanna address a particular point, and then nobody else can say a particular point, and we are 10 minutes till, so.
that's fine, Your Honor. I'm gonna get the transcript printed out, and I'm gonna see what representations were made by these counsel as to this being a new and surprising issue to them, and then pick it up in the morning.
And in fairness, I'll listen to it all tomorrow morning, so everyone has the same equal opportunity to be prepared, okay?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Thank you.
Appreciate it, so, pardon? Oh, we moved, okay, just move on mine, okay, I appreciate it. You are not up first tomorrow. We've got push things 8:30 and earlier, so that means please do clear at least the front tables. If you need some stuff on the second table, that's okay. And you can feel free to utilize the various parts of the court in which you all had asked previously. Okay, have a great one, we're about to.
Thank you, Your Honor.